Hi everyone! It decided to get a little cloudy and dark out there, but the show must go on. I have just been really looking forward to catching up with you all. I know it's been a few weeks since I have last been on here, and the main reason for that is because I got a new job. So I'm back to working a 9 to 5 corporate role. I kind of softly announced this on stories and had you all leave some questions so that we can really talk about it here. I have this tendency to want to get really close to you. But okay, let's just get into it. A lot of you left some really great questions. Thank you so much for that. It actually helps me so that I can think up and just be able to answer your questions more thoughtfully. At the end of the day, I just want this to be either insightful or helpful for you, and of course, just to be able to update you all properly, because I know we've had so many conversations now around quitting, leaving the corporate life, and it's like, why did I decide to go back? I know there's a lot to talk about, right? So let's get into it. All right, first question. I'll try to get through as many of these as I can. What is your job? I work in talent marketing and employer branding. It's actually quite similar to the role that I was working in before. It's just this time I'm now working for a much bigger company. It's a global company. And if you're not familiar with talent marketing and employer branding, it's basically how employers, how companies communicate what differentiates them to attract the right type of talent, top talent, find people so that it's the right fit, right? And also, to add to that, if you think about how companies might be having a tougher time retaining talent, with the Great Resignation, we've had so many people quit, and it's because, well, it's not because just of this. One of the reasons is because some people know that they can leverage their experience, their skill set to potentially find a better opportunity. And with companies knowing that, now there's even more of a need to make sure that they can differentiate themselves and make themselves stand out to the right talent, because we always want to find the right fit. It's not just trying to promote the heck out of yourself. It really is about, it's like if you think about yourself as a personal brand, for example, you're probably not really trying to attract all sorts of people. You want to attract the right people to enter your world, and you want the energy and vibe to suit you. And I guess that's a really weird analogy, but yeah, that's exactly what I do. A big part of my role revolves around content strategy, content development, and just communicating, spreading that message of the employer branding, because you can create content all day long and showcase, hey, this is a great company to work for. This is why you might want to consider us. But if no one ever sees that content or sees the messaging, then it's all for naught. How are you feeling? How does it feel to be back in corporate life? I'm feeling really good. I think if you haven't watched my previous video of how I got unstuck, that really was life-changing. It helped me tremendously. It helped me move past that mental hurdle, the kind of residuals of the burnout I was still feeling in my body and how it was making me tense up. Getting past that changed everything. And so I just feel like I went into this role with just a much better mindset. And so that's why I think the overall experience has been even better than it could have been. We're gonna try to throw in some non-job/career related questions in here. Thank you guys for asking those as well. Do you do intermittent fasting, or have you ever tried? So I've never really intentionally have done it. I think I've just unintentionally have eaten within a shorter window of time. I don't know if it's a hard fast rule, are you supposed to eat within an 8-hour window? But oftentimes what does happen is we eat a later brunch. So we might eat brunch around 10 to 11, and then we could even end up eating dinner kind of early, around 6. And that falls within that 8-hour window, sort of. So not intentionally, I haven't been consistent with it, so I don't think that really counts. Why did you decide to go back into corporate life? Okay, so let's talk about that, shall we? I always tried to keep an open mind, just in the event that a really good opportunity might present itself, and it did. And that's why, another reason is because the more I thought about what I might want my life to look like 30 years down the road and what it could take to get there, honestly made sense even from a compensation standpoint. I knew that I needed to give another full-time opportunity a chance. Technically, that last role I had, even though I was there at that company for a little over 3 years, That was my first ever like true full-time role. Was it hard for you to get back into the corporate life? Did they question the gap in resume? So was it hard to get back in terms of like just landing a job? In some ways, yes, and in other ways, no. I didn't really go the route of applying to a bunch of companies or really aggressively searching. I was fortunate to not have to do that simply because my skill set was being sought out, and I'm just really grateful for that. Like, who would have known? You know, who would have known? So I did. It wasn't really hard in that regard, but it was hard in that it was tough to find the right fit and tough to find the opportunity that I was going to be pretty excited about. And, you know, I definitely had like a decent amount of rejections too. I would go through, you know, the full set of interviews, and in the end, just didn't work out and didn't play out. And that was a reality too. So it's like yes and no. But did they question the gap in resume? Yeah, definitely. A lot of companies that I had spoken to, you know, asked me about what I had done during my career break, what I've been up to since then, since quitting my last role. What lessons from the last stint in corporate work are most useful? I really like this question. I think what has really helped me is just to know that it's okay if you don't know everything. You actually can appear and come off so much more confident if you just admit you don't know something. Another thing is don't be afraid to ask for what you want. You have more control and like create that sense of ownership over your development within that company. I think the more you do that, the more fulfilling that role will be for you. Okay, so there were a few questions around how this job is different from the one in the past. How is the experience so far compared to the previous one? So it's been about a few weeks in, and I'm glad I just took a bit before even updating you about this so that I could share this type of thing with you, because otherwise, if I had just started, then I really wouldn't have been able to answer this question. There are a few differences, especially it being a much larger company. But you know, one of the main things, I wanted to work with other creatives doing very similar stuff. And I also wanted to work with a team that I would feel psychologically safe in. That might seem like such a small and like nuanced thing, but it's not. I think it's a huge thing. I think it's a huge thing that we don't really think about or think that we would value so much. At least I'm just speaking for myself here, now realizing, wow, there is a difference when you start to seek out what you really want, and once you find it, you realize like what you've been missing. So that sense of psychological safety, huge. Being able to work with a team, and not even just like my direct team, other teams who really prioritize communications it's so different. Yeah, there are plenty of other differences because this is a much larger company. It's a global matrix structure. How do you balance full-time job, hobbies, and family? So this is, of course, a little bit more challenging now. Weekends are even more important to me now because time isn't as plentiful. I just try to make it a point to have something to look forward to during the weekends. No, okay, I'm definitely gonna be spending a good bit of the weekend cleaning around the house and hopefully being able to see some people, family, friends, loved ones that I haven't been able to see in a while. So there's that. The whole hobby thing, even going to the gym, I feel like I don't have a great footing on that just yet, but I'm definitely working on it, and it's something I'm constantly thinking about because I do highly value those things. All the questions about whether we're gonna get married or have kids, I'm gonna just kindly direct you to this video because my stance is still very similar there. All right, how did you explain your career gap during interviews? I'm feeling so stuck at 14 months. I feel you, but the way that I explained it is that I was just very honest, and I approached it with authenticity. I will say, so far when I've just honestly explained it, it has been received pretty well. My biggest recommendation is to always end it on a positive note of how that break or career gap, or you know, whatever the reason that you needed to take that time off, how it was so beneficial and why it was meaningful for you. Nowadays, I feel like it's so much more accepted, which is amazing to see. Even LinkedIn has a section that you can add to your profile explaining any career gaps you've had. That's crazy, right? Like, I don't think a lot of people know about that, but I noticed it and I thought, way to go, LinkedIn. It's very cool. I'm feeling burnt out in corporate life. Any tips on figuring out whether corporate life is right for you? So I was in a very similar mindset, similar position where I was absolutely burnt out. Any tips on figuring out whether corporate life is right for you? Okay, so this is where I got even more stuck when I started thinking about that. Thinking about whether it's right or not for you, I realized like I'm kind of applying the whole black and white thinking again, and it just was not helpful. Until I've experienced many different companies and different roles, like how can I clearly know whether it's right for me or not? For those, like I have friends who are so certain that corporate life isn't for them, and I think if they're that clear on it after just 1, 2, maybe even 3 experiences, then they probably know. But if you're in a position where you're not certain, there could be room for you to continue exploring. I don't want to say whether that means it is right for you or not. I think instead of focusing so much on whether it is right for you or not, think about what you can do, what you can ask for, what you could seek out that would make it more ideal for you. So in my case, finding a role that was flexible enough but still had the opportunity where I could like see people face to face, I really enjoy that balance, because if I were working fully remotely, I think I would fall into these like feeling isolated patterns again. And if you find that no matter what corporate job out there you go into, that it just isn't right for you, even in the most ideal scenario, then maybe it's not right for you. Maybe at that point you're like, nope, this isn't for me. I've got to make entrepreneurship or just something else work for me. If you start asking yourself different questions, it might lead you to the answer that you're seeking. I hope that helps. I'm sorry if it doesn't. I think I've rambled on and on enough at this point, but thank you all so much for watching. Leave any questions you have down below. I just want to hear your thoughts about any of this. Are you at all disappointed? Be honest with me. Are you disappointed that I decided to go back down this route? Is there anything I can help you with? I know it's a weird time right now. I know a lot of layoffs are happening, and just let me know how I can help. Okay, I love you guys. I will see you next time.